here. Alrighty. Um, First off, just want to say thank you to you, Mike. Thank you for getting me in on here, and just kind of some shout out to everybody here right now. Duncan, congratulations on that year. Laura, the 90 days. Molly, you had, I think it was 9 months today. Dylan, you as well, if you're here, I don't know. And then I'm also keeping another one of our members right now kind of in my thoughts and prayers, Misty. She's been, her town has kind of been through some pretty bad storms, so just kind of thinking on that. But alrighty. So, my name is Gabriel. I was born in 1993 in the dead of winter, up in right outside of Philadelphia in Pennsylvania. I don't tell a lot of people in the South that, where I've lived most of my life, but that is where I was actually born, and kind of came into this world. Most of my early childhood memories are pretty good. My family was, seemed like my family was all together back then. I got diagnosed with a childhood kidney disease when I was 3 years old, I believe. I was actually diagnosed he was actually kind of my step-grandfather, but I kind of consider him my grandfather. I know I say kind of a lot to describe people, but he supported me a lot emotionally and throughout my life with a lot of things while he was alive. But he was a doctor, and he aided and helped in the team that diagnosed me with nephrotic syndrome, which the full thing is nephrotic syndrome minimal change disease, which essentially, and it's been in remission for a long time, but essentially when I was a young kid, it would be where it's an autoimmune disease where essentially my brain doesn't communicate with my kidneys the correct way or send the right signals through. And so my body would excrete a lot of things that it needed, like proteins and stuff like that, and then retain stuff like water. And so I would get really bad edema throughout my whole body. I would swell up really bad, which would sometimes affect my nerves and stuff. And as I know I was saying, a lot of my childhood memories were good, but I remember a lot of pain, and it's really sometimes, I don't mean to just describe it as sad, but a lot of my early memories were going to the hospital and being in the hospital and having freaking needles jabbed into me. Kind of against my will, but at the same time, everybody was like, this has to be done in order to keep you alive and save your life. And I just remember being pretty confused and scared and freaked out from a very early age, and of course, at that time, I was not self-medicating. I was being medicated. But nonetheless, my first exposure to drugs, I know that they were giving me painkillers even at an early age, or some type of, stuff to get the pain down at times. And I just kind of came into the world with that, so it was, I've always kind of had my little chemistry sets up until, the last 8 years or so when I started trying to kind of work on myself. But I grew up with that. And so by the time I was 5 years old about or so, some stuff had happened in my family where my dad was a great man, and I love him to this day, even though I recently did, unfortunately, physically lose him to cancer. But he had some things that he felt that he made mistakes and stuff. And so essentially my house, or our family, my childhood home in Pennsylvania, got broken into when I was about 5 years old while my family was out. I think we were like just out. I think it was like around Christmas time. We were shopping or something. I feel like we were at a furniture store, but our house got broken into and some things got stolen and we got robbed essentially. And we came back and found that, the glass was all broken and stuff had been taken and shattered. And that was kind of traumatic as well, because I have like a weird memory of just coming home and like seeing my parents freak out, but I didn't quite understand. I thought like somehow like they were going to be mad at me or my brother or something. I have an older brother named Noah, and I was thinking that was going to, I don't know, it was going to come back on us or something. But I remember like learning like, no, people broke into the house. And and so it wouldn't be until kind of years later that I would understand how things went down. And I still don't really understand how things went down, but essentially my father committed some form of insurance fraud after we got broken into. And I guess because I guess we were tight on money at that time. We had like my family, my mom and dad had built that house, and I think they had kind of put themselves into some extreme debt by doing that. And so they couldn't really pay it off. My dad was trying to pay it off quickly or something, and any kind of move he could take, he would make. I really should have kind of started this off by talking about my parents and like who they are, how they raised me, because both of them have been extremely influential, and I love both my mom and dad. My dad was self-admittedly a drug addict. He had been a teenager throughout the 60s and the 70s. He had been in his 20s and, so on and so forth. So he kind of went through some of the wild decades, I guess you could say. He used to tell me so many stories once I got a little older of just all the crazy stuff that he got into. And I also grew up going to NA meetings, like randomly, occasionally, our family, or like gatherings and stuff. We would go to fellowship gatherings, and it would be for my dad. And I didn't quite understand it, but I do remember my mom trying to explain to me at an early age that like, your daddy has a problem with, drugs. And I was like, what are drugs? And I didn't even know anything about any of that, any stuff back then. I was very confused at the fact that like I was given drugs, but they were prescription drugs, and my dad was addicted to drugs. But it was a lot to take in for like a 5-year-old. So anyways, so this insurance fraud stuff happened, and we ended up having to relocate and move to wherever my dad was able to get the best job. And at that time, he had been working in the construction industry for about 10 years at that time, maybe 15 years or so. Originally, he had grown up kind of working in the food and beverage industry. On my family and on his side, his family had like owned restaurants and stuff around Dallas and Texas, and so they had done that. And my mom's side was like a little different. My grandfather, Gramps, who's still alive on my mom's side, was in like World War II and became a mechanic and stuff essentially after he got out. And So combination of these people. We moved to Atlanta, Georgia when I was about 5 years old, and it was maybe 1999 or 2000 or so. And my dad got a job there, and I just remember being that was probably one of the biggest traumas to me, because I remember being extremely sad and heartbroken leaving our house, like our home. Like that was all I had known, and in the times when I had been sick and like in pain and stuff, that was like my safe place, was my our little home up in Pennsylvania. And so it was just weird to be leaving that. And I remember we couldn't bring our cat or something. Like the house we were moving into wouldn't allow us to bring the cat, and that really messed me up. But so we moved down to Atlanta, Georgia, and I finally kind of start to fit into, I guess, a normal way of life for a toddler. I started school, preschool, or kindergarten, and then into elementary school. And it was strange because kind of like as my life progressed, at that time, they had found a treatment that was essentially working for me, but it was really heavy stuff. So some of y'all maybe have heard of a drug called prednisone, which is a corticosteroid. And it's usually prescribed for either like irritations of some sort or any type of autoimmune thing where your immune system is like overreacting essentially. And because my kidney disease is an autoimmune disorder, they had me on that. And they had me on an extremely high dosage. People that have like a really bad infection or something, and sometimes they give it to them for their sinuses and whatnot. It's usually maybe like anywhere between maybe 20 to 50 milligrams. And if you were to add up all the time and how much I was essentially on maybe 200 milligrams of prednisone every day for about 7 years or so growing up, which is kind of wild because I've done a lot of research and stuff on this, like I'll get to later on in this story where like I went through, I've gone through some nursing school and I've done a lot of sciencey research project things even on my own. And there's not a lot of studies out there about like how that cognitively affects, young people and developing minds and stuff, is like how much corticosteroids can affect that and the development and all that. Anyways, what I'm getting at is I think that contributed to some stuff, but it did cause my kidney disease to go into a remission. However, everybody was like not fully convinced. So when I was about 9 years old in Atlanta, they tried me on it was like an experimental chemotherapy treatment at the time, known as Leukeran, I think is the drug. I think that's just like a generic name. I don't know. I haven't looked it up in a while, but they put me on that stuff, and it was like this crazy thing where I had to go to a lab, and they would hook me up to a big machine with IVs and stuff and inject me with stuff, and then I'd go 2 weeks, come back, they'd take my blood, and it went on like that for maybe about 8 months or so, I think was how long the treatments went. And then I was like prescribed a bunch of other stuff that I had to take. And, you can imagine how all this is having an effect on me as a young kid, and trying to like fit into school, I wasn't able to like run the mile all the time in gym. I remember, getting kind of picked on for some of that type of stuff. And so, I started kind of looking for people that would accept me, and I, to this day, won't even say that I ever like really ran with like the wrong crowd or the bad people, but like, the people that other people wouldn't accept were the people that I always wanted to hang out with and like be around, because we could empathize with each other on how much stuff we had been through and like how hard some stuff was sometimes. And so by the time I was 11, 12 or so, I had finally kind of like developed a pretty good group of friends, of people that like lived around me. We were all into like skateboarding at that time and just like punk rock and being crazy. I was like, I got really, at that time I also got really into music and arts. I had always kind of been into guitar. I had been into guitar since I was like a little kid, 3 or 4 years old, when I first saw like cowboys and Indians and stuff, and I saw cowboys playing guitar. I was like, oh man, I want to learn how to play guitar. So I kind of, had always been into that type of stuff. And by the time I was 11, I had kind of gotten it down a little bit. So anyways, some of my friends, we like formed a little band. Yes, I was really into hardcore music at that time. So we were kind of like a hardcore screamo type deal. And, I was just having a good time skating around, playing music. And, I was actually doing well in school at that time. I was making all right grades. I was making pretty good grades, actually. Yeah. And so it was right around that time, though, that I think I remember I smoked a cigarette first with like one of my buddies who his mother would go to sleep and leave her pack like in the kitchen, and we would just pick one out and sneak out. It was horrible. I think it was like a Virginia Slim or something, which was so funny to us still to this day to look back and be like, I can't believe that was the first cigarette we smoked. But yeah, we did that, I think, at either 11 or 12. And then when I was either 12 or 13, one summer, I was at a pool with that same friend of mine and a couple other people, guys that from the area, and this really cute lifeguard that was older than us. And it was such a weird, almost like out of a movie or something, just like, it would always just be like my group of friends, like our little group, and then like her as the lifeguard. And it was obvious that we were like all obsessed with her. And she would kind of talk to us and like mess around with us. And at some point she was like, have any of y'all ever, smoked pot or smoked weed or something like that? And all of us were like, of course, like we were like, nah, or I think one of my buddies was like, yeah, man, I've like taken a couple hits, but I didn't quite get high or something. And so anyway, she was like, well, I've got this shit, and if you want, you can come back behind the pool house or whatever and take a couple hits off this bong. And so of course I was like, I'm gonna try this out, let's see what happens. And I went back there with everybody, and I actually think that we did this a couple times because like I think none of us really even knew how to hit it at that time, and so like we didn't get high the first couple times that we tried. But like there was one day where we all went back behind that pool house, and I hit that. It was a freaking water bottle bong, and I hit it, and it just destroyed me. Like I was coughing up a lung, and it was once again almost like a movie or something where like as I'm just coughing out all this smoke, I just got extremely stoned. It just hit me like a fucking ton of bricks. And it was my first time really experiencing that heavy of a, I don't know, mind alteration that I had done to myself, like somebody else hadn't put anything into my body that had caused, like no doctors were around essentially, so I was kind of freaked out, and of course the anxiety from the weed spiked that up, and I was like, why is everything going slow? Why does the ground feel funny? Why is there a funny taste in my mouth? And like in reality, if I had just like been able to calm down and probably like drink some water and stuff, I would have been all right. But I was freaking out. So like I told everybody to leave. I got all my friends to go home, and I called my mom, I waited, like the lifeguard closed up and stuff, and I just kind of like sat outside the pool, and I called my mom. She came and got me, and like I told her what happened, and she got really pissed at me, but she was like, I guess kind of happy that I told her what happened, and she let me just kind of go home and like lay down, and I turned my TV on or something. And I remember that like once I finally got home and laid down and like was taken care of, I was still really high because it was like the first time I'd ever smoked weed, and this had been like some crazy kush or some shit. And once I got like all my immediate needs taken care of, I was like, this is not that bad. I could actually really enjoy this, like, and man, I just, at that time, I'd been dealing with like all this crap, where I was still taking the prednisone and stuff, and then I still felt like my body was all messed up from the chemotherapy. And so like I had like really bad eating habits, I couldn't eat. I would not eat as an adolescent that needed to eat, because I don't know, it was weird. My appetite wouldn't be there. And so I found that, cannabis, weed would help me eat. And I was like, oh, I could actually get used to this. So after just like maybe a couple months of me, like after that experience, I eventually went and bought more weed and like smoked with some friends a couple more times. And then it got to the point of where I was picking up, I feel like out of all the like dudes that I grew up with, I was like one of the first people to like go out and like find a dude that was a dealer and like, just be able to like have that on lock essentially, where it was like, yeah, like if I need it, I can go get it. And I was definitely one of like my first friends to like start just like smoking by myself. Like I remember everybody was like, well, I only smoke at parties and stuff. I only smoke with like my friends, and I was like, there's something weird about me, because here I am like blazing up all day, every day, just like by myself, whenever, doing my thing. And yeah, I just kind of did that and got by in school, and played guitar, had my little fun times with my band, and all that up until I was about maybe 14 or 15. And then things got a little crazy again, because like the band fell apart. My kidney disease had essentially gone into a pretty big remission after I had been maybe 10 or 11 years old. And I don't know, it was weird, because it was just like by the time I was 15, I almost looked like I had never been like sick or anything, and I had kind of like bounced back. So I had a whole new like perspective on things. And the band broke up though, and some of my friends started like driving around and stuff, getting cars, and I was like, that's the cool thing, is like to get a car and be able to drive and go places. I have to get a car. To get a car, I have to get money. I need a job. And at that time, like none of my friends had jobs, other than like, my lawn mowing business, or like selling lemonade or some shit like that, garage sales, whatever, picking up pine cones, whatever we could do. But none of us had like actual contract jobs. And my older brother had always been like a really big entrepreneurial type of person, still is to this day. And he was also a state champion swimmer. I haven't even talked about my older brother, but growing up with him has been a blessing and a curse at times, because I love him with all my heart. But he is just a true Superman, which at this time in my life, I really look at with extreme gratitude that I have been blessed with such an amazing older brother. But growing up, at times I was like, oh my gosh, can you just like not win a bunch of medals and like everything and be amazing? But he was. And so Yeah, so he had started a business with another guy, lifeguarding and managing some pools all around like the east side of Atlanta where we were living. And we ended up over, the next couple years, he ended up like developing that. And so by the time I was 15, I was like, hey man, like maybe I was 14, I don't know. But I was like, I'm looking for some work. I need to make some money. My mom and dad never really, they gave us stuff, I'm not going to say that my mom and dad did not provide. They absolutely provided. But there were many times growing up as well where it was like, if you want something, go out and earn it and get it. Like, figure out a way to get it and do it. And we were pretty working class, so, we had to get what we could get and earn what we could get for the most part. And so, yeah, so I needed a job, and my brother hooked me up with this lifeguarding business deal that he had started, and then that made everybody else want to become a lifeguard. So then I started hooking people up with jobs, and I started making some pretty good money as well. And like I got my license, I got my learner's permit, and then I got my license or whatever. And over the course of the next year or two, and 15 to 16, I was the third generation of my family to own a 2000 Ford Focus that had basically gone from my dad to my brother, and then like been rebuilt and then gone to me. And then I essentially had to help rebuild it with a mechanic buddy because it kept fucking breaking down and timing belts and shit. And yeah, so I got that, but it was a good car. And like when you're like 15 or 16 years old and you've got a car that works and it's got a freaking car radio hookup, auxiliary or whatever, it's the world. It's awesome. And so, and you've got a little money in your pocket. And so yeah, so I started partying when I was like 15 or 16. I started going to all these crazy places. I had made a pretty good amount of friends throughout the city. So like I would go to random people's houses and venues and clubs and all this stuff. And my best friend, one of my best friends that I have known like essentially the longest and still talk to almost every day, had a big party one night at his, I guess it was, I don't know, he had a weird family situation as well, and he was living at his mom's house at that time, but it wasn't really her house. It was like her boyfriend's house. It was really big, and they weren't there, and he threw a big party, and there was like a lot of drugs. And that was the first time somebody offered me a line of cocaine. And I remember thinking that they were actually joking when they offered it to me, but then I like saw it and was like, oh shit, that's actual cocaine. And yeah, and everybody started fucking doing cocaine, and so I was like, all right, well, I'm gonna try cocaine, and I did it. And I remember doing that. I think I did like 2 lines. I don't know, good sized, medium sized, whatever. And I started talking to everybody, and I was just like going a million miles an hour, but like everything I was saying was making perfect sense. And I was just like, I sound so fucking smart right now, and everything is great. And I was just like, man, I don't think the cocaine affects me. Like, I don't really feel it right now. And everybody was like, no, you don't feel it. Like, have you listened to yourself? Do you hear how you sound? Like, how fucking fast you're talking and all the shit you're saying. And like, I was just like, damn, well, if this is what cocaine feels like, then I like cocaine. And yeah, and so then I was like, fucking right then, just like straight into being addicted to it, like just blatantly asking the guy that had it, can I get another bump? Hey, can I get another line? What can I do? How much can I give you? What do you need? Blah, blah, blah. Just trying to get as much as I could from anybody that I could. And I was such a little fucking fiend that I was able to get hooked up with this, like, kid from all the way across town that would get, like, Peruvian cocaine from these people from Peru or something. And I was the only one out of, like, all my friends that was even, like, not, like, I was all right enough to, like, go pick him up and drive all the way to the trap house, essentially, to get this shit and then drive all the way back. And I would do that as well because I knew that he would let me, like, get a couple bumps while we would be driving back. So, yeah, we were doing that. I also haven't even talked about, like, all my, like, romances and stuff throughout my life, but I guess right around the time that I was kind of experimenting with cocaine and driving around and stuff was when I kind of, like, had my first serious girlfriend that, you know, I really still love to this day. She's a best friend of mine still now. But, yeah, that was a lot of drama and stuff as well. And she definitely did not like it when she found out, like, how crazy I was getting, essentially. Like, she didn't mind if I, like, drank and stuff at that time or smoked a little weed every once in a while, but she did not like hearing about me, like, tripping and doing cocaine and harder drugs. And then I've also left out another major kind of dopey story of all this that I think I've shared in here before, but for my 16th birthday, I guess the cocaine came after this. I should have led up to this because up to this point, I really hadn't done, well, shit, I had experimented with some pills and stuff. Yeah, okay. I won't skimp on stuff. When I was like, but I'll kind of briefen some things up. When I was about 12 or 13, I stole a bunch of my dad's Ambien and took all those to see if I could, like, trip that way. Or no, maybe I was like 14, you know? Okay. Fuzzy memories, y'all. But I took a bunch of Ambien at an early age, and I didn't mean to. I meant to only take, like, 2 and see if that would cause me to trip. But I remember, like, and I snorted half of one, which was a really dumb idea. And back then, this was still the time when they were making, like, these really heavy-duty Ambien pills, like, or maybe, I don't know, maybe my dad was just on the heavy-duty shit, but he would get these, like, big fucking blue ones that, I don't remember all the milligrams of Ambien, but it was, like, the strongest dosage. I don't know, 10 20 30, fucking whatever, a lot of milligrams. And, yeah, I, like, snorted one of those, and I had, like, messed around with, like, a couple other sleeping pills because that was, like, the big thing. I wanted to trip. I really wanted to see stuff, you know. I wanted to, like, you know, experience a really deep psychedelic experience, but I didn't even know what that was at that time. So I didn't really know what to expect. I guess you shouldn't really put expectations on psychedelics. But so when I was 16, I also got busted when I was, I guess, right before I turned 16. I got busted by my mom and my dad for using, I don't know, smoking weed or also growing weed. There was a time right before I went into, well, okay, I'm getting all mixed up, y'all. I'm kind of overwhelming myself. So I went to 2 different high schools. At first, I went to an inner city high school in Atlanta. There was a performing arts school. I went there for music. And while I was there, I didn't get along as well with the performing arts kids because a lot of them were, like, super into fucking Broadway and just, like, some of them were just straight up mean, dude. Like, I'm not even lying when I say that. They were just assholes, and they didn't kind of expect anybody to, like, rear back to them. They kind of expected everybody to just be like, you know, oh my God, you know, I'm so sorry, you know, like, and I was just like, you know, I'm not going to put up with your bullshit and, like, your hazing of other freshmen and me and all this shit, you know, so, yeah, so I didn't get along with a lot of the performing arts kids, but I hung out with, like, the district kids, which were the kids that just, like, had to go to that school because that was their public school. And, they also used to give me or hook me up with like a lot of shit. Like that was where I started getting a lot of weed and a lot of like big, like I would get multiple ounces and stuff from these kids, and like they gave me pills that I don't even remember what these pills were, but I remember wanting to get psychedelics like some acid or some shrooms or something, and they couldn't do that. And I started trying to grow some weed in my closet with the fucking light from like a fish tank or a lizard tank or something, and I started to grow it. Like it started coming up, a couple of plants actually, and yeah, I came home from school one day and all my plants were like ripped out across the kitchen table in the living room, and my mom was just standing there with the most angry, funny expression on her face and her arms crossed, and my dad as well. But my dad kind of was like, I could tell he like wasn't really focused on anything there, and my brother actually kind of snapped on me, and for a while there were times growing up where my brother and I really did not get along, and this was definitely one of them, because he like lifted me off the ground and was like, you can't be doing this shit, that's gonna ruin your life. I was just like, you killed my plants. But he was very, very upset with me, as well was my mom. And then my dad was like kind of upset, but I could tell he like wasn't too freaked out. And in fact, like I had to like go out and tell him right after I'd gotten caught. Like my mom had like caught me smoking at some point, and I had to like go fess up to my dad that I had been smoking weed. And I remember he started laughing when I finally told him, because he was just like, I thought you had like, you were like supposed to be arrested, or you had gotten some girl pregnant or something. And I was like what the fuck? And no, I was just smoking weed. And he yeah, so we were kind of on a cool page with each other. So anyways, my 16th birthday starts rolling around, and my dad's kind of giving me some looks, and he's like, you know, I've got something really special planned for you. And I'm like, you know, oh shit, let's see what's going to happen. And I wake up a few days before Christmas on my, you know, birthday morning, really early. Actually, I think I woke up to my dad like getting me up, and he was he had 2 plane tickets. He had told me to like pack a bag and stuff. You know, my mom she was in on all this, I guess, because she was cool. She was cool and she wasn't cool. I'll get to that later. But anyways, he didn't tell me where he was taking me, which I know that sounds kind of weird, but whatever. If you knew my dad, it was like, oh, this is going to be fun. And so we like get in the car and we drive to the airport. He's like trying to cover my eyes as we're like trying to go through stuff, which is difficult. And somehow like I still don't even like see where it is we're going until like we get on the plane, and we're sitting on the plane, and like I still haven't like heard or something. Or I remember I did not legitimately know where we were going, sitting on the plane next to him. And I was thinking really hard about it. And I was like, what all has been going on in my life? What do I know about my dad? I'm turning 16. What's happening? What, you know? And I remember looking at him and I was just like, are we going to Amsterdam? And he was like, yeah, we're going to Amsterdam. And I was like, oh, fuck. And so we fucking went to Amsterdam. And I found out, even at 16 years old, you're not supposed to be able to go into many places in Amsterdam at 16. But I found out that my dad was a pretty well-connected guy and knew a bunch of people over there. And so all these like coffee shop owners and stuff, over the course of like a week-long trip or something that we were over there, like invited me in, and like I would go hang out in a coffee shop in Amsterdam and smoke a lot of weed with my dad, and then go look at like the Van Gogh Museum and like and of course I was kind of privy to some of the other things that were there, and I was like, you know, hey, have you ever heard of psychedelic mushrooms? And my dad was like, son, I have grown the psychedelic mushrooms. He was like, you know, I come from like 1968, right? I was like, oh shit, dude. And so we went to we went to a smart shop and purchased, at that time, you could just go into smart shops in Amsterdam. I'm not trying to spread this knowledge to the Dopey Nation. In fact, I don't think you can do this exactly as we did it anymore over there, but you could go in and get shrooms. And so we did. We got a bunch of shrooms, and they were crazy. I didn't even know until years later just how crazy the shrooms were that we got. And man, we didn't know what we were doing, and we like made tea, and we were just eating these mushrooms, both my dad and I. You know, I don't know, we must have gone through at least 2 or 3 eighths like each in like the first night or something. And I went to some crazy places, y'all. I've shared some of my experiences over there. Like I've talked about, we went and saw Avatar, which was in like a whole nother, it was in like Dutch or something, because it still hadn't been released in the U.S., but it had come out over there. So we went and saw that, and it was in another language, but I still understood it because I was tripping really hard, and it was just crazy. And like being in a different country, seeing all the cool cultures, or like everything's kind of melted together and combined in Amsterdam. So it was really a beautiful, neat experience. I mean, you know, as much as people might say that maybe my dad was wrong to do all of that with me, that was like how he knew how to bond with me, I guess. And so he was worried, I think, that I was going to get into a lot of that stuff without him around and kind of go through some crazy stuff that he had gone through on his own. And he like wanted to help guide me through some of that before, I don't know, I got there, before I would get there on my own, you know, to be with me on whatever, my first psychedelic experience, I guess. And he was, man. I actually kind of remember having some bad moments that he kind of calmed me down with. But, so yeah, I came back from Amsterdam. Things were weird at home, but I just kind of went on with life and school and working, and summer came, and then that was when I started doing cocaine. And I remember I kind of like did cocaine all throughout that summer. And by the time summer was ending, I was like really struggling with money, because by that time I like had some bills or something. Like I had to pay for my cell phone. I had to pay for, you know, for the most part, to pay for most of my food. My parents were pretty much divorced at that point, and my dad wasn't even really with us that much. Like he would either go on business trips for like a long time, or like say that he was on a business trip and essentially like be living somewhere else for a while, for like a couple months, and then come back. He and my mom they didn't always, most times they didn't really get along while I was growing up. Maybe they did before that, but anyway, so I need to kind of speed some of this up, I feel like, y'all. I'm sorry. It's turning into a long one. Yeah, so ended up doing a lot of cocaine and getting really short on funds. And one night I'm at another party with that same old best friend that I was talking about that I had first done the cocaine with. And he was like, you know, hey man, we've got this other stuff here tonight called Molly. And I was like, dude, what's Molly? And he was like, it's MDMA. It's ecstasy. You know, ecstasy? He's like, it's pure ecstasy. It's not like, he's like, this isn't like in a pill or anything. It's not X or, you know, pressed. This is just straight up Molly crystals. You crush it up and then you either eat it or snort it or whatever you want to do with it. And he was like, I'm railing it. And I was like, all right, well, let me get a couple bumps and try this stuff out. And he's like, you should try it out. He's like, it's also a lot cheaper than cocaine. He's like, you know how you're paying $60, $80 a night to like go through a gram or whatever? He's like, you can have 1 point of this stuff and you'll be going for 6 and 7 hours. So, you know, yeah. And he like gave me my first point of Molly or whatever. And once again, it was just like another, just off to the races. As soon as I started doing that Molly, then it was like, oh my gosh, this is cheaper and it's longer and it's faster. And a couple times, you know, I know it sounds like I'm describing meth, and like it probably was a couple times just like straight up meth, you know. Like there was one time I remember where like a couple months down the line when all of my friends and I were like all into doing Molly that like a batch came in, like one of the people that we all went and got from like had gotten this batch or something, and we all went and did some of it. And this one girl got like extremely sick and had to go to the hospital. And I was like, I remember I was up for like 4 days and like not feeling good either. Like I might have felt like a kind of good, but I was just like freaked out and really sped up and stuff. And I remember talking to like those same friends a few days later and was like, dude, I think that was fucking meth. And they were like, yeah, like Alexis got tested and like all of her blood work came back positive for only meth. There was nothing else. And I was like, oh shit. Well, then that might have been where we were going with all that. But yeah, so, but for the most part, most days we were doing some type of Molly. There were a couple other times where research chemicals and shit got mixed into everything. And like another one of my friends that I made at that time was really into research chemicals and was like, hey man, you should try this shit like 2CE and 2CI and 2CB and fucking all these weird molecules and eat this plant and like and we would have some pretty crazy psychedelic adventures and escapades. That was the same guy that also right around that time, maybe 17 or so, that he invited me to try DMT for my first time. Both of our first times we smoked DMT, and we actually smoked it in like this form called changa that first time, and had I've described it in here, but I had essentially like an out-of-body, to my best of my knowledge, kind of like a near-death experience with it. I saw this, well, first I saw all this crazy like alien writing that popped up on the walls all around me, and I was at this ex-girlfriend's house that was a trippy painter artist, and all of her paintings started having all this writing come across them, and they started doing all this crazy breathing and geometry. Everything started coming out of them, and it all kind of came together in this big swirling ball of energy in the middle of my visual field, and eventually that just encompassed all of my vision, was just this swirling ball. And I had this like really extreme sense of anxiety, but at the same time I kind of had this weird feeling of like another presence with me, of something being like, it's okay, like everything's all right, it's all right, you're in a safe place, you're okay, you're supposed to be here, welcome to the place where souls go at some point. And I was like, what the fuck? And then like, I started to come out of it, and the swirling ball of energy started to lessen and shrink, and vision started coming back better. I started to become more aware of everything around me and people and everything. But yeah, I don't know. I kept on doing stuff like that. And I won't share the first acid trip story because I think I've shared it in depth on here, but I will say that there was a night where I took some, and my girlfriend at that time called me and was like, I really need to get to my dad's house. I've been kicked out. My mom's kicked me to the street, and I need to get to my dad's house. Can you come pick me up? And I was like, yeah, fine, no problem. And didn't tell her that I had taken any fucking acid. And because I didn't even believe that like acid was real at that time. I was like, no, man, like every time I'd been sold acid, it was just some paper, and I'd eaten it and I hadn't tripped. So I was like, oh, spunk acid, it doesn't work, whatever. So I'd eaten like 2 or 3 hits of this acid that this guy had sold me, that was, I guess, this white on white, this fucking, yeah, y'all know about that stuff. And yeah, that drive was the most weirdest, intense fucking drive of my life, where the road lines started turning into double helix DNA, and I barely made it back, y'all. I swear on my life that I got followed by a cop almost the entire way home, and it was like midnight and just crazy, but somehow I made it through everything with all that. But by the time I was 18 and I graduated high school, I was pretty much a wreck. girlfriend had broken up with me, and she had gotten into college out at CU in Colorado, and I had not been on top of my college applications, so I had only applied for like 3 or 4 schools, and I half got into like 2 of them, where they were like, yeah, you can come to our university, but you have to go through like a summer induction program or something, and and they weren't the best of schools, but I was like, yeah, I'll try it. And yeah, I also right before graduating high school, my mom finally like had just had enough of me and kicked me out essentially. Well, there was kind of a weird thing where like she had kind of just left. There was one summer right around that time as well where my mom just kind of walked out without saying anything to me, because she was really depressed at that time. She was having a hard time coping with everything. My dad had basically left us out to dry in Atlanta. My mom could not afford to make payments on the house or anything really, it seemed like. She couldn't hold down work. I couldn't make enough to like make everything work. I couldn't make mortgage payments at that time, y'all. So I think she kind of knew that we were going to lose that house, and I think she was really depressed, and so she kind of left and left me to fend for myself on some things. And that was also the first time that I got really tripped out on. I think that was the first time I did acid. But she came back, and we did not mix well. I was a crazy adolescent on a lot of drugs, and she was like, I can't deal with this. I cannot have this in my life. And so she kicked me out, and I went, and I was actually homeless for 3 days. I slept out of my car. I slept at a QT because they had like this little safe zone spot, and I pulled into that and remember thinking like, okay, I'm good here. I slept in like a church parking lot, I think, and eventually like two of my good friends were like, dude, you can fucking come sleep on my couch. Like, you don't have to sleep in your car, come over. Like, it's all right. And then I kind of turned into a couch surfer until one of my dealer friends was like, you can just live at this house. And I essentially moved into a trap house for like 3 or 4 months. But shit was crazy. And I think I graduated while I was living in that fucking trap house. And then I was fucking miserable, y'all. I remember like driving around the city almost all night with my best friend at that time, trying to find anything. And I remember we did get a lot of shit. And even still at that time, I was just doing psychedelics and like fucking Molly and Coke and anything I could get my hands on. And we did a bunch of all of that and smoked a whole bunch one night. And it was crazy because I remember still to this day it being like 3 o'clock in the morning and me sitting there after I've ingested all these chemicals into my body. And I was just like, I don't feel anything. I don't feel different, which I knew wasn't true. Like, I was definitely feeling something, but it was almost like I had just been feeling it for so long that felt normal to me. And then that fucking scared me and made me really freaked out that I was like, oh my gosh, this is where I've landed myself. Just fucking in some drugged in basement doing this shit, working my ass off. At that time, I had gotten other jobs. I was working in 2 different restaurants. I'd gotten into food and beverage and like delivery service for Chinese food and shit, as well as lifeguarding and like selling shit on the side as well. So, but it was like I was doing all that just so that I could like support myself, just so that I could do drugs, and I was fucking miserable. And so I got really depressed. I cried. I calmed down. I fell asleep. I woke up. I called my mom and I was like, I want to make up to you. I want to make amends. How do I make this right? I went and got flowers, all this stuff, went, back to the house. And she was like, do you want to try checking something out? And I was like, yeah, why not? So she took me to my first, like, in East Atlanta suburbs at that time, there was like a bunch of young adult groups that were popping up, and they were like pretty fucking popular. I don't know if it was just the right time and the right place, but like, I've been to a couple other fucking meetings in the last 10 years, and I had never really, still to this day, I haven't really found anything quite like what I found back then, or what my mom found and took me to, because it was like a bunch of, there was like 150 like young people between 15 and 35 years old, and a few older than that, and kind of the treatment center crowd. And that's really what it was that was a treatment center group that went to this NA group fellowship, a couple meetings and stuff a week. And she just wanted me to like check it out, and I ended up befriending a bunch of people. And they were like, well, you should come hang out at the shop. And I was like, what's the shop? And then I went to this place, and it was like this big fucking, it was like a big warehouse or something in like the warehouse district of like East Atlanta. And they were like, this is Insight. And I kind of put some things together and realized that essentially my mom had kind of turned me over to a treatment center. And like a day or two went by, and I think I spent the night. It was a weird treatment center. That place, they had like multiple like steps that they called them, where it was like, where along with working through the steps with you, if you were like a step 1 patient, then that meant that you were like, you didn't have to like live with them, you weren't 24-hour surveillance or people with you and stuff. And then there was like people that were like court ordered there and stuff, and like they would have to be like, they were like step 2, where they would go back to like a sober living place that was, paid for them. But most of the people there that I ended up getting to be friends with were people that like had their own apartments and stuff nearby, and then they would come hang out at like this treatment center shop, and like we would do meetings there all day, every day, essentially. And I actually like fell in love with it. I mean, I kind of fought it for a little bit at first, and was freaked out and was like, this is a cult and like weird shit. But then it was like, what is there to fight? These people are being nice to me and, accepting me, and shit, I don't have a lot of other options or things going for me right now. I might as well, see what this is all about. And I still kind of stick to that knowledge to this day. One of my first counselors there, like, even with the stuff that I don't take away, I take away the good stuff and keep that and let the other shit go. And, one of the things that was good that I got taught there was like, the drugs are always going to fucking be there. All those substances and stuff, how many times you've gone out of your way and you've found what you wanted to get and you've done what you wanted to get, you can do it. You've proven to yourself that you can go out and do that. But how many times have you proven to yourself that you can stop and just do everything else in life without doing that? And the way that he phrased it at that time, I don't know, it hit me in a good way. And so I was like, okay, I'll give this a shot. And I really enjoyed, going through treatment there for a little bit. I was there for about a year during that time after graduating, and then during that time, at the beginning of that, all that happening, like me going to that treatment center, my mom was like, yeah, I cannot afford to keep the house anymore. You barely stay here anymore. Your brother's gone off to college. Your dad is gone out of the picture, and it's just me. And she's like, I'm moving back to Texas, where the family's always been from, and everybody else still is. I'm going back to around Dallas to be with my mom, my grandma, and Mimi. And yeah, I can have some support out there. And oh shit, y'all, I'm sorry, I'm starting to go over the time. Alrighty, so yeah, so my mom moved out there. We lost the house, my childhood home in Atlanta, and I moved in with these guys from the treatment center into their sober house, or sober apartment at that time. And I actually ended up living in like 3 different sober apartments throughout my time of like being in this recovery group, treatment center, whatever organization there. And the first 2 were pretty bad apartments where like everybody was like saying that they were, you know, working a program and going to meetings, and, you know, some of us would go together and go get food and stuff. And then like over time, it all came out that like essentially at least 2 of those apartments, I was like the only person that was not getting high. Everybody else around me was like getting way fucked up, which I actually kind of found, I actually was like not mad at any of them. And I was actually like, you know, like I felt like it was almost like a nice thing, because it was almost like they were trying to like keep it from me because they didn't want me to fucking get high with them, but they were all fucking doing that type of shit. So, but it also gave me this weird, funny thing of like, shit, how can I actually trust people here? You know, like these are the people that are like my peers that were like saying that they've got time on me and stuff, and were like helping me to try to work the steps and learn about all this stuff. And then they're like lying and relapsing everywhere. And so it gave me a weird vibe with, I don't know, a lot of that stuff. And just kind of left me wondering, you know, about other ways. Like at that time, I'm trying to think of all the other forms, what do we say here? All the other forms of recovery and stuff. Alternative recovery was not as big at that time as it is now, for sure. And so, yeah. But I felt like I was finally doing something. I was finally becoming somebody in life. I remember the first thing I did was like I got a job at Starbucks when I was like 17 or 18. And that was like my thing, you know. I could rely on that, fall back on that. I knew that I could always do that, get up and go there, make money, make coffee, and feel good about life. And after doing that and getting cleaned up at 18, I was like, I want to do something else. I do want to go to school. All my friends were going to college, and I think maybe I was like 19 at that time. But I decided like the only way that I'd be able to do that was to move to Texas, where the rest of my family still was, to have the support of them, and to just go into school, go to community college. I found a really good community college out there. It just seemed like all the pieces were coming together. But right before I was about to move out to Texas and kind of like restart my life, I met a girl in Atlanta, and we fell way heavy in love with each other, and we had a crazy 2 months or something before I moved out to Texas, where we were just like being wild, you know, lust and whatever with each other. But I was like, at that time, I was like, I'm set on moving out to Texas. This is what I have to do with my life. You know, like I had this weird destiny feeling of like, I have to go to school and get my life together. And so I did. I moved out there, and oh shit. Night, Duncan. I'm sorry, man. Damn, it's getting way later. It's going over. Alrighty. I need to start wrapping this up. Yeah, so I moved to Texas, went to school out there. Oh, damn. Thanks, man. All right. Alrighty. Got out there and ended up just doing whatever classes. I remember going to like music classes and stuff, thinking that I was going to try to go into music production. And I had to take, thanks y'all. Thank you. I'll keep going here. I had to take science courses to go along with the music stuff. And that was where I did really good, was like in all my science courses. And suddenly I like had all these memories, flashbacks of like being younger and being good with science. And like, that was one of the few things that I understood. And so I had gotten a job transfer. I was working Starbucks out in Texas, and talking to one of my buddies, and he was like, well, have you ever thought about like anything in the medical field. And I was like, well, shit, man, I can't become like a doctor. I don't want to spend fucking 10 years in school, 13 years, and go $100,000 into student loan debt or whatever. And he was like, no, man, have you ever looked into like nursing or like EMT or anything like that, or even just like assistant of some sort? And I was like, no, I hadn't really thought about that type of stuff. And he's like, well, dude, you should fucking look into that. That might be like a little loophole for you in life. And I was like, sounds good. And it was from that moment, that talk with that buddy, Randy of mine, that I was like, I'm going to fucking go to nursing school. And that became like my main fucking sole purpose for living at that time. And still kind of is at times, you know, and it gets me through a lot of stuff, is that kind of being a centering thing of what I want to do, just setting kind of that as a goal. And, you know, I really committed myself from about age 20 to about age 23 heavily to going to school to earn my RN and my BSN and become a nurse. But sometime about 2 weeks before my last semester, I've told this story a lot on here as well, and I don't want to necessarily tell it in a bad way or whatever. And just to keep it simple, I failed a drug test for marijuana, for cannabis, weed, pot, whatever, 2 weeks before my last semester of nursing school. In my defense, they were trying to catch another guy, but they caught me instead. And even before I failed it, or like before the results came back, I went up and told the truth to the teacher because I thought for sure that I wasn't going to just like get eaten by the system. But they were like, no, we're fucking kicking you to the curb. And they did. They expelled me. They were like, you can reapply for the entire school after a year, but you have to wait a whole year. You're on a complete suspension for a year from this college. And when you do reapply, we can't guarantee that we'll accept you, but, you know, if you do get reaccepted, you'll have to repay all the fees, fucking bullshit right there, as well as start from the very beginning and take all of the, you know, very first courses, just restart everything completely fresh. And it's like, as the dean of the nursing program is like telling me this stuff, I mean, my fucking world is just closing in on me. The walls are closing, and I'm just like, that's it. I'm ready to die. Like, bye-bye future. Bye-bye world. I don't want to be here anymore. I don't even fucking remember the next 3 weeks after I got kicked out of the nursing program. My mom drove me home. I was a hysterical wreck, bawling my eyes out. Just fucking nothing. The girlfriend from Atlanta had broken up with me at that time. That had been a long thing. As well as, right before I went into the nursing program. So I've kind of talked about, like, I've had a lot of friends die throughout my life. In fact, I can't believe I missed, like, my first person I knew to die was one of my good friends when I was 9 years old, who was in a hospital bed next to me that had leukemia, and he passed away. But yeah, I've had a couple other friends throughout my life go, and my best friend, the dude that I had talked to every day that always seemed to have like my best interest, and I had his best interest as well. We had each other's backs on shit. Died suddenly in a hiking accident with another friend of mine who was trying to actually save him because they fell off a waterfall. Ironically, in Western North Carolina, where I live now, and this was like before all that. Anyways, but he fell off before nursing school and died, and I like got depressed, but I was like, at that time, I used the depression to focus in on school and was like, I'm just going to throw myself into my books and like not deal with grief or like sadness or anything like that. I'm just going to deal with it by fucking reading, which is not a good idea. And I ended up really fucking sad and torn up and like fucked up in my head about things. And so by the time, 2 weeks to the last semester roll around, I'm like, man, it'd be nice to get a little stoned and relax a little bit. And I didn't think anything would happen from it. Didn't think I'd get caught. We had already been tested twice, which I had been fine and passed on. And so I did, and I got expelled. And my world got dark. And then another one of my buddies who had spent the last 3 or 4 years moved out to Northern California, and had worked with another friend of ours to develop a big pot farm, a big weed farm. And so he had kind of gotten wind of everything that had happened with me and was like, Gabe, you could come out here, and I'm not going to put any pressure on you with anything. You can help me on the farm, see how you like it. And if you want, you can turn this into your new life. And I was like, that sounds pretty good, man. And I ended up getting on a plane just like a week after that and flying out to Northern California. This was probably about 2017, I want to say, maybe 2016 or 2017. And I got out there, and it was just crazy from the moment that I got out to Northern Cal. He lived kind of in between Sacramento and San Francisco. I want to say, I don't know, around the Green Emerald Triangle area out there. And from the moment I got out there, just crazy shit happened. First of all, they all my buddy and everybody else that was working on that farm got locked up while I was in the fucking air flying out there. Their farm was like one of the last farms that they did like a really big raid on before all the laws passed and stuff. And so they all got put in jail, and like he had to call me from the Sacramento Correctional Department or what, Department of Corrections or whatever, as soon as I landed, and was like, hey man, I'm in fucking prison or whatever, but I'm going to get out, or jail, I'm going to get out. But, you got to lay low for a couple days, get a hotel room, and I'll call you in 3 days and we'll figure it out. Fucking crazy. And so, but I did all of that and ended up working on this farm for like 2 months. Even with all this crazy shit, there were wildfires that went on. There were crazy neighbors that shot at us a couple times. And then like the people that were working on the farm with us were like trying to shoot back. And I was like, fuck this. I don't want to be in a fucking gunfight and shit. And then it was just wild. There were bears that ran through the compound at one part. Still worried, freaked out, thinking like we would hear helicopters and think that we were going to get raided again and shit. And I came to find out that like everybody was doing a lot of fucking drugs out there as well, not just smoking a lot of weed. And I wanted to trip at that time. I was like, I haven't tripped in a couple years. Let's see if that's still fun. And I ate some acid a couple times out there that definitely wasn't acid. It was some fucking else on some candy and stuff that, I don't know, man. Acid does not go brown on sweet tarts. Like, that's some other fucking DON type shit or something. I don't know. Just anyways, that was, ate some of that out there. And was having some crazy anxiety with all the craziness of it all. And my best friend that I had originally come out there to be with, one night we were in a hotel room because I had needed a break from like the farm. And I noticed that he like kept going over to the fucking window and like lighting a fucking light. I would hear his lighter flick and like see him put his head down. And I'm like, what the fuck are you doing, man? What's going on? And he's like, nothing, dude. I'm just like smoking this stuff. And I was like, the fuck are you smoking? What are you doing? He's like, man, I don't want you to get in on this shit. I don't want you doing this stuff. And I was like, you don't want me doing it? What the fuck are you doing it in front of me? And he's like, okay, man, I'm smoking opium. And I was like, opium? Oh man, like that's cool. Like, I had smoked opium like once at a show or something with some people, and so I was like, that's all right. And he's like, yeah, I like to do that at the end of the day, and it helps me calm down and stuff. And I was like, he's like, but I don't want you doing it because you'll get too into it. I don't want to be the one to get you hooked on it. And I was like, whatever, man. And that went on for about maybe 5 minutes before I went over to him, and I was like, you're fucking giving me some of that shit right now. And he did, and we smoked he said it was opium off of foil, and I think at that time it really was just straight opium, but I did love it, and we ended up doing it like every day after that, the rest of the time that I was there. And I do know a couple times he said it was opium, and I think it was actually tar, and then there were a few times where it was just straight heroin after we got like into the city. We went into San Francisco for a little while, and like we met up with these random fucking people, and they were all on just, I don't know, there was a lot of crazy shit going on where everybody was, I don't know. I remember talking to this guy in a hotel room and like seeing his pupils switch. Like one was dilated and one was small. And then the other one fucking got small and the other one fucking dilated. And I was just like, all right, these are the people I'm around right now. And I really hope that, we just make it through everything. Even though I was like half enjoying some of that, but I was also not enjoying it. I was also really freaked out, worried that I was going to get arrested or killed or overdose or robbed or any of the above, anything, just bad. And so I told my buddy, I was like, man, I can't stay here in Northern California. I got to go back to Texas, or else any one of those, all of the above things is going to happen to me. So I flew back to Texas. It only took about a week before I was able to get back on a plane and back out to Dallas. And I remember, I just essentially just stopped doing all the opium and stuff with this guy. And I remember flying on the plane, and I was like, man, why the fuck are my hands so sweaty? Why do I feel so irritated? Why is my head hurt? Why is my neck hurt? Why can I not sleep right? Why can I not get comfortable? Why is my shirt itch? I was like, I think I'm fucking withdrawing from shit. And and it did not feel good at all. And I got back to, at that time I was just kind of in between places. So I was living at my grandmother's house in Dallas, and I knew that she had some pills. And so, yeah, it's like as soon as I got back, I started, unfortunately, looking into those medicine cabinets and sampling some of everything that she had. She had hydrocodone, she had codeine, she had a few little like 5 milligram oxys, tramadol, and just like, I don't know, Valium, Xanax, lots of Xanax, Ativan, benzos, just fucking, I don't know, and a couple other things that, I don't know, you name it, she probably had it. And yeah, so I started messing around with all that stuff then to kind of help cope with the withdrawals. And I actually applied to another school and got into this other school. It was actually University of North Texas. And I like started going to classes there. And I was just kind of this sad, lost, I don't know, I felt really lost at that time, because I didn't really know what I was doing. I was kind of just still taking prerequisite nursing and medical school classes. Like I was retaking biology again, which I was doing good in, but it was just kind of like, fuck, man, I've already been here. And and I'm just doing pills, and I'm smoking weed, and I'm working at Starbucks, and I just felt really stale. And but I felt like comfortable. I remember like the pills, the opiates specifically, would make me just feel so comfortable in that position where like I didn't mind that like I felt stuck. Like I didn't mind anything. Everything was okay as long as I could nod off at the end of the day and like not worry about anything and just go into that black abyss of nothing. I didn't want to fucking feel anything anymore. I didn't want to fucking think about anything. I didn't want to deal with the world. And it's funny because this is all before everything that has happened recently, you know, y'all. So, yeah, even at that time, I was just like, I don't want to fucking be here. And this is the easiest way to check out. And eventually the pills ran out from my grandmother, and I was able, through multiple social media apps and like Reddit and all those other things, to like find some other local like plugs to like get pills and stuff. But I was like, man, this is difficult. And so eventually, through one way or another, I got linked up with this guy that was in like Fort Worth, which is like an hour and a half drive from, or at least to his place. It was like an hour and a half drive from where I was in Dallas. But he was like, yo, I can get you like the real deal. And I was like, what? And I went over there and gave him $200, and he gave me 2 grams of black tar heroin. He actually took me with him because I thought that he was just going to give it to me, but instead he like was like, no, I got to go pick it up. And so we like drove to like the fucking hood of hoods and picked up this shit. The cop, this fucking 2 grams, or I don't know, maybe he got like an 1/8, and I think he took some off for him. And then I was like, yo, let me get that. And I got the rest. And he was cool. I mean, I don't know. I didn't really stay linked up with that guy that long, but because I drove back, and I just remember like I maybe went and did that and copped from this guy like 3 or 4 times. And fucking every time driving like an hour and a half back on the highways, I was just fucking panic attack to the max. Like I would get a fucking car behind me, and if it looked like a cop car, it was just like my life was flashing before my eyes. I was like, because in Texas, it's like not a big deal. I don't know. It might not be a big deal if you're caught with like weed or like, you know, whatever small stuff. But if you're caught with like cocaine or heroin or hard Schedule 1 type substances, like you could easily end up doing 2 or 3 years of jail or something. And so I was like, fuck, man, this is like big shit stuff here right now. And yeah, so I did not like driving around and fucking picking up. I didn't like buying from the street and stuff like that. And that led me to finding out about the fucking dark web and that shit. And it's also right around this time, I think 2016, 2017-ish, that I found Dopey. That it was, I remember because I had been doing pills, and I was like driving out to Fort Worth and buying dope from this guy. And I don't quite remember the first way of how I found out about Dopey, but I feel like it was either like, okay, I've told one story here where like I remember I went out on a walk after snorting some oxys, and like I just looked up like heroin or something on podcasts on Apple or iTunes, and it popped up with Dopey, and I was like, oh, what's this? This looks interesting. But I think I had also seen like a day before or something, I had been on Reddit, and like a fellow opiate user person had like posted something with like the Dopey logo, and I was like, oh, what the hell is that? That looks cool as fuck, you know? Even right now, still seeing it, I think, on Jed's picture here. Yeah, that thing. I've always seen that Dopey logo, and I was like, that looks really interesting. And so I think like a day later, I was like searching heroin or something on podcasts, and it popped up, and I was like, wait, that's that shit. And I started listening to it, and I started from like episode 1 at that time, and I just instantly fucking fell in love with it. I felt fucking at home. It was almost like listening to Dopey at that time, still to this day, sounds crazy, but it was almost like fucking doing drugs for me at that time, you know. It was something that I could do, I could put on, and it just kind of like evened me out, you know. It would help get me right, that I'd have these 2 dudes talking in the background. And recently I've gone back and restarted, so that's why I'm so excited talking about it. But yeah, those first couple episodes, those are just some golden episodes. I mean, listening to Chris and Dave, and just like the camaraderie between them and stuff is awesome. And yeah, so I fell in love with that. And they started kind of planting those seeds of recovery in my mind again, of like, you know, man, you shouldn't really be venturing down this rabbit hole because you've kind of done stuff like this before, but not quite with like opiates and shit. But you know, I was wanting to go for it at that time. So yeah, so I was doing my fucking heroin and shit, and I got into like the dark web. And it was weird because it was like right when I was getting into the dark web was like right when they would start to talk about it on Dopey, where they'd be like, you know, like Chris would be like, oh yeah, there's this time that I got some acid from like fucking Silk Road or something. And I was like, what the fuck, man? That's like some shit that I'm looking at right now. I mean, at that time it wasn't Silk Road. They've updated it. All this other shit that I don't really know if I want to talk about. But yeah. So anyways, yeah, I started doing that. I started ordering most of my drugs from online. I can't believe I just said that out loud, but yeah, I did. And a lot of stuff, and especially the opiates and especially the heroin, because at that time I just felt like that was the easiest way to do that, because all I had to do was, you know, essentially, I mean, I had to like be smart about like what I was doing, but at the same time it was like, essentially I can just sit at my desk and like press a couple buttons, click a couple buttons, and like 5 days later I'll fucking get my shit at my door. Hopefully I don't get fucking raided. Hopefully I don't get knocked down by like a SWAT team and like hauled off to jail and like go away for a long time. And so, of course, the paranoia started kicking in real heavy. And that, you know, just constant anxiety, which then I would get my drugs and use more to keep the anxiety away. But then just bad anxiety, always just like wanting to get more, needing it, and very, very quickly approaching that like, oh, man, that fucking rock bottom of like, I'm miserable again. And this is where I always get myself with this shit. My fucking chemistry sets always take me back to this fucking miserable hole. And, I mean, I do remember like the first time I got, so I ordered some fucking grade A black tar heroin from the dark web, from somebody that had said that it was like from the fucking Sinaloa cartel or some shit. And I would not doubt that it had come from some type of source connected with all of that. And it was very fucking strong. I remember I got this shit and I just smoked a little bit of it at first. And that, yeah, I just kind of the dopey story of all of it was like, I felt like that was like the first time I had done like pure, like the most pure heroin that I had done up to that point was that. And I remember I did it and it was like maybe 7 p.m. in the evening and I laid back in my bed and I was just like, oh man, I'm just fucking going off into the poppy fields of heaven and I'm not coming back. And my grandmother came and like knocked on my door and opened it and was like, you know, hey, let's go get dinner. I'm ready for dinner. You know, can you drive? And I was like, fuck, man, I can't let my grandma know that I'm like really fucked up right now. And so I was like, yeah, I'm good, Mimi. And that was so stupid of me. But somehow I drove us to this fucking chicken place that was like down the street. And I remember eating all these fucking chicken and waffles because like, if you've ever been on like dope or opiates or something, for some people it like triggers these weird munchies. Like for me, it always did that. I don't know what it was, but like when I'd be nodding, I'd be like, oh man, I'm fucking like food tastes so good at that time, especially like sweet stuff, but really any food. And so I would eat a bunch and then I would get sick as fuck half the time because of everything else that's going on with your digestive system. And I got really fucking sick. And I remember my grandmother being like, do you think you can drive us home? And I was like, I'm good. We got in the car and I like backed out of the parking space and I was like, hold on a second. And I opened the door and just like exploded onto the fucking street. And she was like, whoa, I think I'm going to drive us home. I was like, that's a good idea, Mimi. as I'm like the fucking dopey guy, just like nodded off. And so it was getting really bad, and my family noticed. They were definitely starting to notice that I was like not all together. And even though I was like keeping up with stuff, like I was going to school, I was doing good with that, working. I usually do my own laundry, but my mom decided to do my laundry one night, and she found a bunch of shit in my pocket, and I feel bad talking about this day, but I think she found like a syringe and like some foils and a lighter and like a spoon and like a bunch of baggies and stuff. And I had a full day that day, so I had like gone to 2 classes that morning and worked for like 10 hours, and then I got home at like 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock, and fucking everybody's in the living room. Like a lot of my mom's side of the family is in the living room. And I was just, all day I'd just been like, I just want to fucking get home so I can use and relax and not deal with shit. And it was like the moment I walked in and saw them, I was just like, fuck. I know what this shit is. This is a fucking intervention right now. And they're like, yup, this is your intervention. I'm like, gosh darn it. Sit down. And they're like, bless my mom. She gets up and she's just like, have you been smoking crack? And I was like, no, I have not been smoking crack. I didn't say at that time, like I have smoked crack, but I was like, no, I haven't been smoking crack. And she's like, well, what's all this? And she like laid out all the paraphernalia and stuff. And I was like, and at that time it was crazy because they had the news on in the background and it was like kind of quiet. And this is like 2018, I believe. Yeah, 2018. So they're still kind of talking about like the opioid epidemic and all that on the news. And I was like, it's that. I was like, that. I'm caught up in all of that. That's what it is. And they're like, the opioids and stuff? And I'm like, that and heroin. And they're like, oh. And it was like, I just remember like when I said that that's what it was, like opioids and heroin, the look of fucking disappointment that went across everybody's face, which I was like, what the fuck? Like, I don't know why y'all would have been less disappointed if it was crack or something. But like when I said heroin, everybody just fucking lost it. Like my uncle started crying, which broke my fucking heart because I love this one uncle of mine, like has been like a second father for me at times. And so that broke me down to see him start crying. And I'd also like been using a lot of Adderall at that time. I'd gotten a prescription for Adderall, and I had another friend that was selling me. I was back on cocaine. I had a friend that would sell me coke. I wasn't doing it like really crazy like I had been when I was younger, but I would do the heroin just nonstop. But the cocaine I could like kind of save for the weekends and stuff. But that was my favorite thing. Was to like do a fucking speedball of both and just go with that. And so anyways, my family had this intervention. They had that first one didn't really work. They ended up taking me, I ended up kind of sweet talking my way into Suboxone therapy, which was my first mode of wanting to stop. And I still, to this day, kind of feel like we should have gone about all of that a little bit differently. Like I should have been allowed a little bit more leeway with that. But basically, my family didn't really want me doing some type of maintenance program. I mean, I was able to convince them to let me get on a Suboxone program, and I did. And, I got a bunch of the little, the 8 milligram, 2 milligram strips, the orange ones, blue and orange, blue packet. Yeah, y'all know what I'm talking about. And, yeah, and so I was doing that, and my grandmother has a bit of a time with drinking, and so I came back one night from everything, and I was like doing my Suboxone thing and like going to a couple little meetings here and there, and she was like, she had been drinking, I could tell, and she was like, I don't want you in this house unless you are completely clean, unless you're off everything. And I was like, Mimi, that's unfair. You're drunk right now. And she was like, she did not want to hear stuff like that. So she was like, you either go to treatment or you're cut off. This is it. Like, I'm done with you and the family. And I knew that she like didn't fully mean it, but she did kind of mean it. And so of course I was like, fuck it, I'll take the treatment option. And I didn't even have great insurance, so I couldn't get a lot of time, I guess, at the treatment center that I was supposed to go to at that time. But I was able to get like a scholarship or something as well because my uncle was friends with these people. And so I went to this Oxford treatment center in the middle of Mississippi or whatever, or in Oxford, Mississippi. And it's kind of in the middle of nowhere. And, you know, to make it short and sweet about that, even though there's a lot that I could get into with that, this was the time that I really fucking took it seriously. Because also, like, not right before that, but sometime prior to that, like, was when, like, Chris had died on the Dopey podcast, and, like, I had a couple other people that I wasn't best friends with, but I had known that had OD'd. And so I knew, like, shit was getting serious around me. You know, like, some of my friends were, like, getting into, like, fucking fentanyl and stuff. They were like, you know, this is definitely pressed with fentanyl and all this type of shit. So I was like, damn, dude, like, you know, this is not a game anymore. This is this is real life addiction shit, and you could very easily die if you keep going on the route you're going on. And even though a really sick, depressed part of me kind of wanted that and was like, you know, that's how you commit suicide. But at the same time, it was like, you don't want to do that, man. There is so much more fucking life ahead of you, you know, and you are meant for so much more. Everybody is meant for so much more. Everybody is a miracle. After I've learned all the fucking things I've learned about every single cell in your body doing every fucking thing that it does just for you to be where you are right now, and I've fucking made it through all this fucking kidney disease bullshit, I'm like, you know, I'm definitely meant to, like, be alive, you know, like, whatever power of energy and universe within this universe that is the higher power that I believe in, you know, wants me to be here right now. So I need to try to be aware of every moment and present. And so, so I chose to take it seriously, and I ended up taking away what I could get from it, and once again, just leaving all the bad parts. You know, of course, it's fucking rehab. There's going to be shitty fucking parts, y'all. There's times where we're all in that fucking med line, and we're not getting our shit on time, and the nurse is being a fucking not a nice person to us, and none of us feel good, and we could all complain about that shit. But at the same time, it's like, you know, what are we going to do? We just fucking got to do what we can to get through this and do the next right thing, and it's going to be all right, you know. Forget about the bad shit. Take the good parts, you know. For every time that there was that shitty med line, there was a beautiful sunrise the next day that we could be out fucking walking in the grass and talking with each other and having a cup of coffee and relaxing and having a good time and stuff, you know. So it balances itself out. And I just chose to try to just only focus on those good things, you know, and trying to listen and take in everything that I could, and to finally fucking learn to talk about my traumas and share about, you know, like, yeah, this is why I feel some of the things I feel, I think, I don't know. You know, you tell me about yours, and maybe we can figure some shit out together about what we're trying to do here, you know, how we can help each other to support each other in recovery, you know, and to stay clean and to stay sober and all that. And so, yeah, I loved that treatment center, and I was there for about 45 days. And then my mom came and got me to drive me back to my car. My car was back in Texas. And I moved back in with my grandma. I could have gone to a sober living that was nearby the treatment center, but I kind of at that time decided that I wanted to go back to Texas, and I knew of a really big, really good NA group there in the middle of the city that like has been there for, it's like a well-established group. It's been there for like 50 years or something. My dad had gone to that same group, and so I started to do like a 90 and 90 with that group. Met a guy that I ended up asking to be my sponsor. I've talked about him before. He scared the shit out of me at first because he's covered in tattoos, man. He's got all this shit on his face and stuff, but he's the nicest guy. Well, at times he's had his moments as well, as we all have, but he's really a cool dude. And he ended up helping me kind of get started on stuff. We have not worked all the way through the steps. In fact, we didn't really even get that far on them this last time. But basically, so that was like the winter-ish of 2018. I don't know. The last time I ever used, like I came back from treatment, and just so anybody out there, I know people might relate with me on this, but don't feel bad if this has happened to you. I did fucking relapse almost right after I got back from treatment. Soon as I got back to my place, I was going through an old sock drawer and fucking forgot about some fucking foil that I had stashed way back at the back of this sock drawer. And yeah, so I remember I used up like all the last of what I had, but yeah, I relapsed. But the last time that I used was November 29th, 2018. And then I started doing all this shit with Sam that was my sponsor at that time. But my mom moved out to North Carolina around that time as well because my grandparents had always lived out here in the mountains, and it was real peaceful and stuff. Or they had a house out here in the 90s as well as the house in Texas. But they had sold it like in 2000 or something. And so my mom had always loved it, and she moved out here to like have her own little bit of peace and serenity and stuff. I decided, you know, I've talked about it as well on here, but like even though there's no like geographic cure, they say in some of these groups and stuff, you know, they also say like sometimes it helps to change your people, places, and things. And someone else kind of backed me up with that the other night in here, and it's true, you know. So for multiple reasons, I decided to move out here to Western North Carolina into the mountains, change up my people, places, and things about a year and a half ago now or so. When I first got out here, I had a really hard time trying to find an AA or an NA group. Couldn't find them anywhere that were close by. They're all like 2 hours away. I'm really isolated in these mountains. But I found a smart recovery group. And I started going to that. And I've heard bits and pieces of people talk about it within the Dopey Nation and Dopey group and stuff. And I will say that, like, I mean, I don't know if it's fucking still going now with COVID, but it was a really cool kind of alternative take. It's almost the same thing. It's just not exactly the steps, but it's almost like, you know, you could incorporate the steps with it. You know, it's not against them, and it's not like, you know, strictly about them. It's kind of just like a more open-minded approach, I would say, to taking in recovery. You know, what works for you is what works. I mean, sometimes people argue with that and dispute that and say, well, you know, what works for you isn't always what works for you, or what you're going to tell yourself works for you, all this shit. But I don't know, you know, we could debate that type of shit for hours. It helped me, you know, and that was what I needed. I needed a little intimate small group of some older people that I could just kind of talk to about recovery, and they could talk to me about it, and that would be kind of my, you know, time with that, and carry it on into my day. And without all my connections and stuff around me, there's nobody for me to go to for it. And being out here, there's like tons of fucking nature. There are like 200 waterfalls within like a 50-mile radius of me. I can go hiking and walking and backpacking and camping and stuff, and it keeps me occupied. It keeps me sane, you know. That's a big part of my recovery, is getting out into nature and being connected with the world, the natural world, animals. You know, there's tons of wildlife out here. There's deer. A lot of my friends own horses and cats and dogs and chickens and all these crazy things. And so you can go out and, you know, get involved with the world, and that type of stuff always helps a lot. Yeah, so I loved it, and I decided to moved out here, and haven't even talked about all the craziest shit that's happened in the last year of being out here. Of like, yeah, my dad got cancer about a year and 2 months ago or so, or he got diagnosed with end of life stage 4 liver cancer, end stage liver cancer, and so I've spent the last year fucking going through some shit, as I'm sure everybody has, but even pre-pandemic, pre all this stuff, you know, he got diagnosed in May of last year, and I would fly out to Dallas, Texas for 2 weeks at a time, 3 weeks at a time, and I would take care of him, and I'd spend time with him. We'd make the best of the time we had, and then I would fly back, and I would work my ass off to make money, and I would piss my managers off with my scheduling, but they were cool. They usually worked with me. And then I found out that this one manager at this coffee shop job that I have, like, had a huge crush on me, and I started fucking dating her, which was probably not the wisest idea. You're not supposed to ever fucking date other people you work with, but here I was, super vulnerable, losing my dad, and not, you know, once again, I'm still that kid from the fucking playground that's just fucking looking for somebody to accept him and to, you know, that I can be vulnerable with, that'll take me in. And here was this girl that was like, you know, yeah, you can hang out with me and I'll love you, it's cool. Even though she was really more just kind of like using me, I think, because I don't know, I think she likes how I look, but like doesn't really like who I am or something. I don't know. Anyways, yeah, so my dad, yeah, in the last year started, you know, fading, and we had planned a trip to Israel together to go over there. Long story short, my dad had converted to Judaism, and yeah, he was really into that. I thought I supported it. I would go with him to services and stuff. I never like fully converted. I just you know, really enjoyed it. I think it's a cool thing. I think, you know, if you're looking at religion for the positive aspects, it's an amazing thing. But I don't know. I'm a very open-minded. I believe in like everything. It's weird. I don't know. I believe in energy. So I'm just kind of like, I think we're all trying to say the same thing in different languages. That's kind of how I look at all these religions. So yeah, but I supported him, and I wanted to have an amazing experience, which I knew would be, yeah, I know, going into all that. But I ended up going with him to Israel to have that experience and to be his caretaker. By this point, you know, like, he was in a wheelchair. He needed someone to help him. Definitely couldn't go to a different country. And this was in November of last year. So, like, this was right before all the COVID hit, which is kind of freaky now that I look back on it. Don't worry, I've been tested, y'all. I'm negative. But, yeah, I went with him over there, and there's no more simple way of saying, or other way of saying, that we had a trip of a lifetime, you know, like, it was just the most beautiful thing in the world to experience everything with him. We went to the Dead Sea. We went to we stayed right on the Mediterranean Sea. We ate some amazing Mediterranean food. We went to all these crazy temples. We went to the wall that, you know, everybody talks about. And And yeah, I mean, I don't know. And I learned a bunch of stuff that I could get into, but I'm not going to bring all that into here. So yeah, it was really neat to do that with my father, and really, I don't know. It was like, we got to cope with each other of what was going on and kind of talk about life and death and the cycle and parenthood and childhood and all this, the universe, energy, God, everything, y'all. It gets deep, and I can definitely get deep with people. If anybody ever wants to talk to me outside of this, I can go for hours, as you can probably fucking tell. So, yeah, had that trip with my dad, came back from that, stayed in North Carolina a little bit longer, worked a little bit more to save up, spent the winter and my birthday here. That was kind of depressing. And then 2020 started, and as y'all know, it's just been one hell of a year, right? And what a time to be alive. Yeah, so yeah, the fucking pandemic hit, and like, and I think as a society we've become more aware of some other horrendous things within society, like racism and other types of just unacceptable beliefs and shit. To me, I think we're starting to kind of, I don't know, there's like energies in the air right now. And anyways, all that shit was starting in like February, and my dad was starting to get really sick at that point, and I was like, oh fuck, I might not be able to even fucking get out to him, if shit goes really sideways. So I was like, I remember we got like locked down, like the whole fucking country locked down for 2 weeks or whatever, and I was, my dad was like locked down at home at his apartment in Dallas, and I was out here in North Carolina, and I was like, as soon as this starts to kind of lift up, I guess I'll just have to get out there. And everybody was like, either get out there or don't get out there, man. Like, you need to make up your mind one way or another. You should go, because your windows of time is closing. Like, your dad's fading, and then it's also just like, we don't know what's going to happen. And I think everybody's been kind of feeling that lately. It's just like, we don't know what the fuck is going to happen. And so, yeah, I threw all my shit in my car one day, and during all this time with all the lockdown stuff, I, of course, reverted back to dopey heavily, because what am I going to fucking do for 12 hours out of the day while I'm locked down at home, and fucking I've cleaned my house 2 or 3 times already, and all my shit's done, and I don't know what else to do. And I'm walking around or going for a hike, so I'll fucking listen to dopey. And then I started seeing the on the Facebook group and on the Reddit page, I started seeing the Zoom meeting stuff, and I was lonely, man. I was fucking in lockdown and quarantine, and like, I had my dog around, and at that time I had my girlfriend of the time then, and I say that because y'all know, as that's the same one that we just recently ended. But yeah, but we weren't always together, and I was still getting kind of lonely. So I would jump on here on the Zoom meetings, and I started to see all these people and all of y'all's beautiful, awesome faces and these smiles, and here it was like, I got to have a little fucking piece of dopey every single day now. It was like a new fucking, I don't want to say like classify our little meetings as episodes, but almost to me it felt like that at times in the beginning and stuff, like logging on here. And that was just the coolest fucking thing, y'all. I needed that. I still need that. And yeah, and so I started doing that, and I logged on the drive out to Texas when I was going out there to see my dad, and I logged on every day while I was with him, just about. And yeah, and he passed away with both my brother and I by his side. I went through some heavy emotions. There were multiple times I wanted to use, and I like almost used his fucking meds while I was out there because he was on some heavy shit. You better believe he had fucking oxy and morphine and fentanyl and all this shit all around him. But I did not. I was able to hold it together, and y'all helped me through a lot of that. And my brother did as well. Support is a big thing. Just, you know, when you know the people that you have that, I don't know, there's people out there that can help with stuff like, you know, helping keep you clean and will have your best interest. A lot of times certain family members and stuff and people in here. And, yeah, so that's kind of what has definitely been a big aiding factor of all of it. And, yeah, and my dad passed away. I came back out here. Oh, I got into some shit in came back out to Western North Carolina. I got into some shit with my mom's boyfriend. I stick to my guns on this. I'm not fucking around. One day he just told me to fuck off out of nowhere. And I told him to fucking kick rocks. And, and I left and I got all my shit. And, up until that point, I had been living with my mom and like, because she had fucking needed help to move out here, and I had been like helping support her. And then he came into the picture, and then I was like, fine, dude, I'm out. I don't want to get in between you and my mom. And, you know, I'm trying to have her back as well, but it's a sticky situation. Anyways, the best thing for me was to get out of there. I did. Moved into my own little apartment here, upped my hours at both my jobs. I've recently been working on trying to get back into nursing school out here, but things have been a little crazy. They're like rewriting the curriculum and shit. And recently in the last 2 days, I think on like Monday, Monday, my kind of girlfriend that I had been with the whole time and stuff, straight up fucking dumped my ass. I'm sorry, there's no other way to put it, man. She like was like, yeah, we're done. And I was like, wow. Okay. Yeah, I did get a haircut. I need another haircut. But yeah. Then the day after we broke up, actually on Tuesday, I ended up going for this long hike up this mountain out here that was crazy big mountain that I went up called John's Rock. Beautiful. If anybody's ever out in Western North Carolina, check it out. Although be careful because it's really fucking dangerous when you get up to the top. There's no rails up there. Yeah, and I went to work on a Wednesday at my other job, the restaurant job that my ex-girlfriend is not at. And y'all, it was wild. I don't know how this fucking happened, but like so many people were like just being so sweet and nice to me that day. And I actually ended up talking to like 2 or 3 other girls that were super cute and like nice to me and stuff. And just really boosted my confidence back up that like, you know, man, like it's not the end of the world. It is just part of life. You know, it's going through a breakup. Everything's going to be okay. And yeah, so things turned out fine, you know. I actually worked with her at her shop today, my ex now, and we did fine. We did great, you know. I just kind of kept my head down, focused on what I needed to do. I think that kind of got to her like I could tell she was kind of trying to like rouse my attention and distract me a little bit, and I would just like smile and do whatever it was that she needed done and then keep on going, which I think kind of threw her off. And I don't know, now I think she is kind of like in her head, which I'm like, oh, well, whatever, you know. What are we going to do? I think right now I need to continue to just try to focus on keeping myself all right. And through doing that, you know, the people that are meant to be in my life will be in my life. And yeah, so on November 29th of this year, I will have, that'll be 2 years solid for me. Well, not solid, I'm sorry. I should clarify something. I didn't talk about this, but I will say I had a little bit of a slip up with my dad in Israel. I did not like fully relapse, and in my opinion, I did not fully like relapse, but like I did smoke a little weed with my dad when I was in Israel, because for one thing, he was dying of cancer. He was prescribed weed for one thing. He had the fucking medical grade, y'all. And I don't know. It was something we had always done together. So yeah, we smoked a joint on the balcony overlooking the Mediterranean Sea, and it was one of the most amazing experiences of my life, was getting to do that with my father. But we also had a lot of other great times where we weren't just obliterated on a bleezy or something. We were not always high with each other, but yeah. So yeah, that was, I guess, November of last year that happened. But other than that, yeah, I don't know. I try to not put too much pressure on myself these days with like clean time and sobriety and stuff like that. Like, that's what I found kind of fucked with me a couple times when I tried to get sober 10 years ago, clean 10 years ago, and I was like 18, being like, oh my gosh, I got to do this for the rest of my life. And like, I don't even know fucking if I can do that, and all this stuff, and keeping track of everything. Y'all were talking about like the app helps you keep track of it. I don't have the app on my phone. I just had a phone fucking break down on me that was like my fucking good phone and all this shit, but I was able to switch over to this other one, and I try to just, roll with the punches of stuff. Like I said, like that phone broke, so I switched to this other one, and I was like, you know what? I'm grateful at least that I've got this other phone that I can hook up my SIM card to. And like, right now I can't take my other iPhone to the Apple store because they're all fucking closed and you can't make an appointment. And so it's not much you can do about it. You could send it in, but I'm like, I fucking send my phone in. So yeah, anyways, yeah, girlfriend broke up with me, but things have been all right. And, I don't know, I'm grateful every day that I'm alive. I'm grateful for all the simple things. I'm grateful for where I'm at. I'm grateful to be clean. Grateful for the time I got to have with my dad. And like I said earlier, it's just I have that perspective like of all life is a miracle. All of y'all are a miracle. When you learn about, like I said earlier, just every fucking cell in your body, everything that has to take place for us to be where we're at right now. How could you not, believe that you are a miracle and you are worth life, all of it, everybody. So yeah, that's it, y'all. I fucking went for way too fucking long, over 2 hours. I fucking can't believe it. I can't believe anybody's still here. I feel like I'm talking to myself, but I love y'all for hearing me out, Yeah, right on. That's it.
Heard he got some land down south. Changed his name to a name the birds could pronounce.